Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the delay, but thank you for joining us today. Again, here it is just DJ live with you on LinkedIn, YouTube, and anywhere we are streaming, Facebook as well. Just want to thank you all for joining us. I have a super special guest. I first want to give a shout out to my co host of the former What's Next podcast, soon to be rebranded, Chris. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join me today. So I will be having this special guest come out with me here shortly. I am so honored for him to join me. First off, let me just tell you guys a brief story. And for anybody who is joining me live right now, I want to thank you just honestly for all of your support, for all of your just graciousness. It means the world. So seriously, thank you. From the start of this whole journey on LinkedIn with Sales Chatter Live to now the What's Next podcast, and then obviously what's next for me and Chris and everything from there. But that is a little recap of there, and now let me kind of get started with so have the author of I Compete, John Hewitt. If you don't know who he is, you will hear shortly. But he, since I met him just a few weeks ago, he's really inspired me. Has changed my life. His views. I've already listened to the book twice on Audible, so get it on Audible if you don't already have a copy. It's amazing. His story, his journeys, just the what we're going to be talking about today, which is leadership and loyalty. He is a true example of a leader who leads with the servant's heart, is giving in his time, and is gracious enough to give his time here on the show. So without further ado, I want to kind of bring out the grandfather of taxes, the grandfather of franchising, the Hewitt, Jackson Hewitt, Mr. John Hewitt.
Thank you, DJ. Pleasure to be here.
Oh man, John, thank you so much. It's my journey on LinkedIn and putting content out and just podcasting in general has been insane. But to lead to having the honor of having you come on and be one of the guest on one of my shows is amazing. I've your book, just your journey. Want to get into that, but first, I guess what I'd like to start is what is Loyalty Brands, and then we'll kind of get back to that with what's next with that, and then we'll go into just if you could, I guess, give a little of who is John Hewitt and the story and the background of the book.
So that's a lot. So you asked me a couple things, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. I can probably remember both those questions. So this is a conglomerate of franchisors. In a way, we're a franchisor of 12 different brands, and we're adding about one every other month on our way to, and we specialize in mentoring and cross the brands. So that's Loyalty Brands. It would take me an hour just in what they do, so I won't get into that. But I will tell you a little bit about my journey, in my career. I started when I was at the University of Buffalo in our block part-time, and I loved it. 12 years later, I was running 250 H&R Block locations, and my dad came to me and said, after 12 years, and said, "Let's computerize taxes." The company, and he liked the little Apple he bought by mail better than the mainframe that was running. And so in 1981, we developed the first tax software for an Apple computer. Ahead of its time, we got blessed and we found a company here in Virginia Beach called Mel had died, and we bought 6 offices from his widow. We merged the two companies, changed the name to Jackson Hewitt, went public, and $483 million. I had a non-compete that lasted for 3 years. Hewitt was not in Canada, still isn't, and it didn't cover Canada. a Canadian tax system. So we opened Liberty Tax in Canada, just as I had in the U.S. with Jackson Hewitt, became one of the top 100. So now I've done it once in the U.S., become a top 100, and once in Canada, ended in 2000. And not only did I have to in our block, but I had to compete with my own name, my own software, my own system at Jackson. Not only did we grow faster than Block or Jackson Hewitt, we grew faster than both of them combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years. Top 10 fastest franchisors ever. Company again worth $500 million. So now I founded 2 of the top 100 chains. Only person ever to do that. Value of over $1 billion. Again, stock, and now started Loyalty Brands. So in a nutshell.
You, as you always do, as I've seen on the other podcasts you've been on, you give such direct answers, which I love, and such a great, really brief story. The book, guys, really gets into the depth of it, really gets into his journey, really gets into some of the adversity that I think any great leader faces in their journey of really rising to the top. And so, I mean, with doing it twice, I know you had mentioned on a few other ones, you said your goal and your one of your drives is to do it a third time and have a third company on that top 100 before anybody else gets to number 2. Now, obviously, with the book, I Compete, you're a very competitive guy, and we'll get into that too. But what gives you that drive? What is still driving you to want to have that number 3? And I guess, will you ever stop? And the reason I ask that is kind of selfishly for me. My wife asks me that all the time. What is enough for you? And she just wants to know like what the end is. I don't think I have an answer, so I'm curious of yours.
Yeah, when I look at human nature, it's for retirement, plan to travel. What am I going to do when I retire? The opposite of who I am. They got to kill me to start my last breath. And I think it's a shame. I don't try to change other people and tell them they shouldn't retire. But 53 years in the industry, in building franchises and helping people, I'm at the pinnacle of my expertise. Like, such a waste to go sit on a beach somewhere and not talk to anybody. And so the single driving force is the single most important. My biggest accomplishment is having helped tens of thousands of people. And you know, I think I made up the phrase, thank God it's Monday. So the world goes, thank God it's Friday. Well, not with me. I mean, to me, if you're morning and you're going to work and you're not looking forward to it, you're going to the wrong place. I've been so blessed in so many ways. My vocation is the same as my avocation. My business is my hobby. So I just love what I do. And again, they got to kill me to stop me.
Man, I love that you said that about Monday, and I love that you said that about they have to kill you to stop you. I feel like in me, sort of, I think everybody has a competitiveness in them. I think there's two types of people who are competitors, though. I think there's those who love to win and those who hate to lose. Your book, I Compete, obviously, your drive and just wanting to. And again, it's not even that you're competing. In the end, I think you're just competing with yourself, which I love. which I think that's what this life is about, competing with ourselves and always improving ourselves to be better. And that's where you're wanting to constantly give more and more and helping others. I think that's the answer that keeps going back even to my head is that same. So I love that I feel just that passion that you have for wanting to give to others. I put up a
interrupt you for a second and say that you made a good point that there are two reasons to compete. One, right, the joy of winning, and the other is to not lose and the pain. And I may be driven by more. I hate to, this is mundane or aggravating for many. Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. And I believe more by the pain of losing than I am in the joy of winning. But the pay, if I could pick them both, then one time I get to lose and one time I get, I can't. I hate the pain of losing.
I agree. I agree completely. And it was a thing that I definitely was a very, very bad loser as a kid. So I understand that. Now I will put this up and we'll talk kind of about this because you went right into a thing that I love that you say. Only losers need excuses, and I'm sure a lot of people see that in different ways, and it might sting people a certain way who just hate people who love to win. But to me, I think the reason why that's so powerful, and winners don't need excuses because they just don't stop until they do win. And that's what it says to me. I don't know if that was your message or your cryptic message in that. I guess go a little more into that.
Yeah, it's I try to never give excuses, right? And Vince Lombardi said that I'm old enough to remember Vince Lombardi. So one of the greatest football coaches ever, Green Bay Packers, 50 years,
absolutely,
60 years ago, and one of the greatest ever. And he said on the field every week with a plan, knowing that we're not going to always win. I mean, God didn't put anyone here to, and one of my favorite Twilight Zones was, again, you're not old enough, Twilight Zone in the 60s, but a guy who was a womanizer and a compulsive gambler, womanizer, he dies at a craps table, and he's winning every roll, and there's 2 or 3 women on his arms. Beauty thinks he's in heaven, but then he just wins every time, and he realizes that first. So I go on the field to compete, and Vince Lombardi said you have to come up with a plan, strategy to win, knowing that you're not going to win every time, or you learn something that makes it easier to win the next time. It makes you're always improving, but actually you improve more from your losses than you do from your.
Oh, yes, I agree 100% with that. I think that's the only way I've gotten to this point in life. I think I've just lived this crash course of just fail fast and recover faster and just keep going. So I love that you said that. And that's one thing I definitely got from your book as well. Now, next question I want to kind of ask. I seen this on a podcast that you were on. He asked this, and I loved just the idea of the question, but also what you had talked about. But knowing what you know now, if you met the 16-year-old version of you, what would you tell them not to worry about, and then what would you tell them to focus on?
Yesterday, I talked to a group of college seniors and season, and today I talked to a networking group, and both of them they asked me the same question answer different than I did when I was on that podcast, because
Okay.
that's twice in the last 28 hours. So let me say that I probably wouldn't have listened. So if when I was 16 or 18, that's human nature. So it doesn't matter what I told myself, that I wouldn't have paid attention. I'm a man, and people don't listen. You know, that's the toughest thing with giving people advice. So um, I wouldn't. And then I also have a back and said, what if I had done this and this would happen? Because you can never happen if you took one path versus the other. God's going to put adversity in everybody has faced adversity, and there's no one that gets to skate. So what I do is my advice is really set about Monday morning. I think life is too short. You need to be all that you can be, and give and going on Monday morning to somewhere you're looking forward to. You're going to the wrong. We need to each find our right place on the planet, and overnight where they're going on Monday morning. Go find some place you like. You know, there was at Princeton 60 years ago, and they looked at all the graduates, pretend there was 100, and 80 of the 100 got a job, and 20 of them went and either fooled around or started. So they toured Europe, or they just sat around on their parents' couch. But 25 years later, they went to the students and found that the who hadn't gone right out and got a job had more wealth than the other 80. And it's in counseling people over the years, I've interviewed thousands of people, and my favorite question to ask, that I always ask, is, what do you want? And people laugh and say, I'm never going to grow up, or but most people don't know if they're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. They don't. Even 50-year-olds don't know what they want. So you need to spend some time finding yourself and figuring out what you want to be when you grow up. That's the key that I would give to any 16-year-old. Find something you love to do. Life is too short.
I love that you said that, because that has been something that I struggled with for a long time, kind of connecting the dots. I feel like I'm pretty good at connecting the dots for most things, but at least for me, it was I was always hopping from this to that, not really knowing what I wanted, because nothing was really like fulfilling enough. And it wasn't until really this. It was hitting 40. I don't know if you've read. I know you're a great reader of books, but I'm sure you've read Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil. But he talks about the age of 40 being the age of wisdom, and just hitting that during COVID and everything, and being in a transition of owning a few businesses to working with somebody. I was lost. And so you saying that, it was when I really realized, like, we're all in a rush because we're living life like we used to, or humanity used to, when we only lived to the age of 50, and we're in such a rush. And life's so fast, but we think we need to have the answers so quick. And so we're asking kids so young. And I was always kind of beating myself up, asking myself, like, why do I still not know what I want to do? And so I'm so glad you said that, because that's, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there today who've either from job transitions with what we've gone through are asking themselves that. I know I've met a lot of people in this kind of LinkedIn journey of just really growing my network and reaching out. Talking about that, you're very big on loyalty, obviously loyalty brands. I know you mentioned in one of the podcasts as well about your one of the big two things you would like is, and I guess your legacy. I think it had something to do with that question, so we'll kind of talk about that. But is how many people are around you and how long they are around you. And you said something that was so, he mentioned it in the podcast and I loved it that I wrote it down. And you said, as long as you remember me, I'm still going to be alive. And he said that was very profound. And that to me was like, whoa, that's literally the secret to living forever. If you can leave a lasting memory on enough people for a long enough time, that's the secret to, and that's really just giving like what you're doing. So I guess talk about that, but and then I guess any of your thoughts on that.
Sure. 13 years ago, my youngest son turned, and I was with him alone, and I said to him, "Well, how does it?" And smart aleck, he said, "It's going to be a long time before I'm triple digits." Always teaching dad. Always teaching dad said, "Well, how long triple digits?" And he thought for a minute, and he got it right. He said 90 years, and I said 90 years. But as long as I'm alive, as long as you remember me, I hope you live for 90 years. But yeah,
Yeah.
The legacy is paying it forward, right? When I've done a lot for tens of thousands, helped create 1,000 millionaires, and people say, well, some people are, I mean, most people, but the people that are grateful and want to do something back for me, I say the best thing you can do forward. The best thing you can do is pay it forward. And it was unbelievable called Pay It Forward, and it was such a low money about but it was resonating that favorite one of the favorite parts of is to whom much is given, much is expected. You got to give back.
Yeah.
You can give me and yourself all these blessings just to go or on an ocean, or I'm sorry, on an island somewhere and relax. If
Yeah.
we've got to give back to others.
I I agree, and I think that is where that saying of great hard times, and I think we're in that time of this period of humanity where we need more people wanting to give back like you are and wanting to continue to give. You mentioned about the much is given, much is or received, much is given. David Goggins also kind of talks something about that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with David Goggins, but he amazing story, crazy, kind of had a really rough life, leading to then kind of pushing himself through the Marines, and he talks about God and going to see God on that day that we pass, and God having this chart and looking at this chart and saying, oh, I thought you were going to do this. I thought you were going to do this, but I didn't see this. And he always talks about outworking the chart. It almost seems like that's your same kind of drive. Would you say what really is driving you?
What I wake up every morning, and I go to sleep every night, and how I can help people. As far as
Yeah.
why do I? That's different than motivation from within.
Yeah.
Drive is something people. When did I become driven? And I can't remember a time. That's something I just with me why I was born with drive. That I always knew I was going to be successful. I was always lived in this age of bliss. There. One of my favorite books is called The Age of Bliss, and the author says, we're we start out as 6, 7, 8 year olds, right? We can be an astronaut. We can be president of the United States. We can be superwoman. And then we get beat down. We get beat down by our parents, by our friends, no, you can't do that. Honey, you can't do that. That's out of you can't play on the New York Yankees or whatever it is. You can't do it. And so they get out of that age of bliss. And again, one of my many blessings is they never beat me down. I always thought I could do anything. And I've not seen any, and so that's one of my, encourage everyone to, again, not only find something you like to do, but goals. I mean, you don't have to, don't just be ordinary. Even the best of us, even people like you and me, we're not 100% using our full talent, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite biblical story is the talent. If you're familiar with the talent story, essentially,
yes,
the message is talent, and there was three in the talent story, and two met their goals, did great. The master said, all the blessings of heaven and earth will be yours. They each had a different. The last one just didn't have any increase, and he said, "You're going down." I challenge people to stretch to can be.
I love I love that you told that story, because I remember hearing you tell that story in another one of the podcast. And yeah, that's I think what I would love, and what aligns with exactly what you were saying, is for more people to really just understand that like you said, find what really makes you happy. You went back to this, and I kind of threw this up when you were talking, so I'll throw it up again. But you had said this: if you aren't happy going into work on Mondays, you are in the wrong business. And I think that was one of the things that always, I didn't know how much that affected me inside, but it affected me inside to make me always just have to find what it was. And I think it has a lot to do with what you said with kids and protecting from the negativity. There's so much negative. There's so much beating us down constantly. What would you say? Where do you think, I guess if you had to attribute it to one thing, what do you think helped you as a child just keep that belief that you were able to do anything, or you could always do anything? And how can we protect our kids to do the same?
Well, again, to me, it was the thing that drove me was the agony of losing. Right?
Okay.
That I was always committed to win, and and when I didn't, it was, so I think that's the key is the avoiding the and again, I think in many 30 years, when my youngest children I hated it because you would spend $30 to buy a set child, right? And or ninth place or fifth place, or and I don't think that's good for humanity. I think for trying harder and doing better, and it's okay not to be one of those. What I found is people are different at different things. I may be the smart, but I'm not. I'm a horrible chef. I'm a horrible musician. I'm a total artist, and
Yeah.
I'm zero. I have zero ability. She was a genius at art. I was zero. It's sort of like there's some old saying related to a fish in a tree. Finest fish in the world, right? The best swimmer. And then he has a contest, right? So if they each had a contest, right? The squirrel's trying to swim, and the fish, everyone needs to find their thing and excel. We all have the opportunity to excel at something.
And I agree. I love that you say that, because Les Brown, he says, he has a quote that really, I share a lot. I believe in a lot. He says all of us are born unique, but most of us die copies. And I think that's, to me, where we end up getting stopped at a certain point and thinking that we have to. I think it goes back to us having to decide so young as kids that we need to do this, or I'm going to do this, and then we stay there, and a lot of us end up not wanting to do that. I mean, I've met so many people recently. I actually just met a guy in a networking group, and that was his exact story. He was in IT for 30 some years, 40 years. I hated it. He's not his passion at all. Actually, his passion is helping others, and senior care is his passion. And so he ended up starting a business, left there. His kids were out, and said, I don't know why I'm doing this. And I think a lot of us are forced to decide so quick, when, back to your point of what do you want to be when you're older? Well, that seems to always change, is what it seems like. And it's in the end, whatever is making you happy. With that, you're very big, and I've heard you mention quite a bit in your book, quite a bit on podcast, the difference between skill and attitude. And I actually shout out to Tanya if you're watching, but she had said this to me, and I said, Tanya, I'm going to steal this from you. But she said, you can teach skill, but you can't teach will. And I thought, wow, yes, that is so true, and that really is back to your attitude and skill. Why is it so, to you, so much more powerful with hiring somebody because of a good attitude versus what their skill they have?
First, I'll say that, and before I tell you that Tom White, one of the founders of IBM and the CEO for decades, give me 100 great entrepreneurs or 100 people with great attitude. And he said, I'm going to pick the people with great attitude, because you can teach it, you can't teach attitude. And I have one of my biggest values in my trying to change people's attitude. And I've tried with dozens if we try to change their attitude. And what I've learned is that you can take someone with a positive, they can have a negative day or week or month, but they pop back. And you can they can have a positive day or week or month or year, and they pop back. And so motivation means actually from within. Yeah, I was a student. I am a student of business, and until I was about your age, I wondered why is Walmart came up? And for an example, why are there companies in the same industry and one company's going down the toilet? Whatever industry it is. And are they smarter at Walmart? No. You can hire the smartest person. Are they? No, you can hire the most experienced person. Are they more educated? No, you can hire them. So if the leaders of the great company aren't more experienced, better educated, aren't more intelligent, then why is Walmart and Kmart to the understanding about 30 years ago that it was because of the culture of each, which is made up of the attitudes of the people in the and I actually took two of my top people with me to upstate York because I had seen in the Wall Street Journal that Wegmans had over 60%. But I said, wow, what are they doing right? And so we stood in a Wegman, and I finally realized what it was. And there was, you're not someone sitting there with some samples, free samples, like cheese and crackers or something. I asked her, I said, um, why are you working here? And she said, well, I said, do they pay more? And no, it's pay about the same. And here, and I said, well, what happens if someone comes in and they don't like working? He said they leave because they don't like it. And when I was in franchise decades, for decades, I hated when people said when bought a great franchise, and they would say, oh yeah, right. And to me, that initially was painful, and then an epiphany. Of course, that's why there's of course, if you don't follow the program, if you don't follow the system, then you're going to be ordinary. Vast of people that follow the yellow brick road, that follow the proven system. That the key to success is drinking the Kool-Aid and attitude. And so I learned that 35 years ago. And since then, the first attitude, not for skill set, not for skill set. So we wanted to determine whether their attitude fits in our culture.
I I I think that's what I fell in love with, and really the past 20 years of my life has been working for small businesses with franchise in some way or fashion, and really didn't tie that all together until this road leading to you, really. But and even that pre-COVID was thinking of getting into a franchise because of Robert Kiyosaki. He talked a lot about franchises and why start your own system. If there's a system that works and all you got to do is copy it, why not? That I think that is what I love about franchising and what I love about what you're doing so much. The culture, when franchising is done right, I think it's really the way that culture could bleed all the way through, because you had said, and I'll put this one up to show you. I think it's this one. Yes. Even if you work for somebody else, you work for yourself. Act as if you are the owner. And I think that's twofold. I think that's hard for somebody to truly be as the owner, but that's where the culture, and like you said, where if they're happy to be there and everybody feels like part of a team and on one mission, is where that culture comes from. But it has to come from the leadership down. What did you mean by that? And I guess, how can you bleed to your, even somebody working for somebody else, to act as the owner? What advice would you give them to view that way?
Would I give someone to act that way?
Yes.
Yeah. One of my biggest failures is, and second big failure is ever getting someone to act like an owner. What I've learned is that out of all the employees I've ever hired or ever seen, act like owners. And so I've been unable to their mindset. Big failure. So I wouldn't do it. And so I actually invented a concept that I haven't yet, that what a great book it would be, or idea, if you could teach people to find that act like owners. When you hire, not only do they have a great attitude, but they act like an owner. And if you can come up with a formula, is the person that's going to act like an owner. And so business ends up with, they end up with 20% or 30%. What a great company that would be. And we do that, right? The great companies have a higher percentage of going. One of the things that I do when I speak to groups, I name all the great companies, right? And I say, there's what company can we agree that is always is great? And you know what? There's that come to. I mean, someone will shout out McDonald's, and someone else will say, no way, right? How about yourself? I'll give you that quiz. Just tell me some national great company. And
so
they can
the one that comes to mind for me is Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's on everyone's list. What else? Anyone else? Disney,
yeah.
Right? People say Disney. There are 10 great companies in this country, right? There are 10 companies that 5 or 30 people could agree in. And so there's an opportunity. What I'm trying to do is put together a formula to figure out like a employee and who's going to act like an owner. So I'm partway down that path. I'll tell you what my initial findings are. I'm keeping them to be the one that publishes the formula. That's more valuable.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for sharing that too. I did not know you were going to mention any of that. Now talking about strengths and weaknesses, I did hear this question in another podcast, and you touched on a lot of people not knowing their weaknesses. What would you say are your 2 strengths at this time, and your weaknesses, your 2 weaknesses?
So I have to admit my weaknesses in front of everyone?
No.
Clearly, building businesses, right? I'm the only one, as you know, that's built 2 of the top 100 retail chains in the country.
Exactly.
And I took 2 companies and built them into over $1 billion in value. So
yes, sir.
That's powerful. That's in the top 1,000th of 1,000 in the
Absolutely
human race. And so, and other thing as part of that, I have a goal to do more for everyone I meet than they, and knowing that I could never catch my parents. So they did more for me than I did for them. But everyone else, I mean, right? I insist on doing more for everyone than they do for me. So I think they have that I'm a giving person, and in life I run into our givers and takers. And DJ, guess what? There's more of.
Unfortunately, a lot more takers.
Exactly. So, and that's just fine. I find people that I give to, including my own children, they just do not appreciate. They don't appreciate in the United States of America. You're in the top 1% of the people. So how could you whine about anything?
Exactly.
How could you whine that you have to drive somewhere to do something? Or I mean, how could you whine? You have to start out with a thought of just understand that you are blessed, that you have. And so I understand. So I think giving is second biggest.
Well, I can vouch for that because you invited me to dinner, and I thank you for that. It was amazing. The people you had there, I mean, it bleeds to the testament of you giving and always wanting to give more. Just hearing them and how long they've been with you and have known you, and just how giving you really are. It is amazing. And I wanted to before, and you could go back to that, but you talked about giving more than your parents. And in that one podcast, you mentioned writing a letter to your parents. Now, I haven't done that yet, but I am going to do that because there are a lot of things I want to say, but I can't think them saying. I think it's easier to write and give. So I understand why you did that. And I think anybody watching right now, do that. I think if our parents and if parents and if everybody could communicate better, we can be more understanding and have an understanding of each other. And it's sometimes hard to do that. But so I see the value of why you wrote that letter. I guess, can you tell that story of writing that letter and what made you do it? Um,
Yeah,
and just how important that was for you?
about 35 years, people who's now been with me 33 years, and I have half a dozen years. Her father died, and I said, "Do you have?" He died suddenly at about 50 years old or 45, about 50. He was about 50 years regrets, and she said, "Yeah, there's some things I wish I would have said." And a while, and then said, "You know, that's true. We don't sound with our parents and maybe our siblings, our best friends, say these are all the things I appreciate about you, right?"
Yeah.
I mean, it comes up, thank you for this, thank you for that, and so I sat down and I wrote, and my parents had just become separated, so they became separated when I was about. Fortunately, they were together through most of my childhood and early life. So I wrote each of them a letter, and I said, "I know you're very proud of me because I'd already have $1 billion company." And they would tell me regularly, "I'm so proud of you." Dad would say, "You know what?" He would shake his head and say, "No one else could do what you're doing. And you're sitting in your office, and people come to the door, and you're multitasking." And he was particularly complimentary. Now, when I was a kid, I wasn't getting compliments, but once I got to be an adult, then we had a really close relationship. And I was very Maverick and fought with my dad until I was in my 20s. But and so I knew they were proud, and I said, "I know you're proud of me, but Dad, this I learned from you, right? And Mom, this is what I learned from you, and this is so I am who you produced, right?" And I learned one of the loyalty story with my dad, right? That he 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 was ostracized by my mom's family because they were kind of workers in the heavy machinery, and he was an accountant, and my dad was a cold person. I mean, he just was cold outwardly, and so he never, and so he liked to be by himself. So he didn't like to hang out. My mom had, they would have a party with like 60 people, and my dad didn't even go. He kind of come fun, and he just he'd rather be a mountain man by himself. But so he was ostracized by the family, and my mom was 7. My mom's oldest sister got 4 children, and they were all under 10 years old. And so my dad, first check we were poor, and first check he'd stroke every month to her sister, even though the whole family, now the sister appreciated, they still ostracized them, and didn't like them. They didn't know him, but they didn't like loyalty. That was one of the many things that I taught my dad, how loyal he was. And so that was part of the love. Right? I love my mom. Right? What my mom taught. And me is they lived long enough. I got to write a second life. So, so now I had. I mean, I added new stories or new I loved about them and appreciated them and why I was who I was. So they got that I am who I am, and I've done what all I've done. Right? They are the most influential people to me on the planet, and what I've done and be blessed. I was blessed to have them.
Ah,
I
thank you for thank you for
I
sharing
don't
that.
want my parents to die or my how I felt about it. And life passes so fast. It's it would be it's I don't want to have regrets about.
I'm glad you said that. I think that's why I've lived inwardly the life I've lived to this point of just taking the chances and going through the regret, the fear of regret of not trying something. I think kills me more than failing at something. Um, and so yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that story when you shared it in uh, I instantly thought, man, I have to do that because I've been thinking of that as I'm kind of at that age of 40. I think once we start to really realize, like, take ownership of everything that you've done to this point is your choice, your decision. You're only where you're at because of you. And then you start to really peel that back and start, well, okay, I'm doing this because of my dad. I'm doing this because of my mom. And I got this. And oh, wow, I noticed they do this, and that whole journey of hitting this age and this um, hitting that age of wisdom, like Napoleon Hill talks about, has been really that. And then you
You know,
telling,
I mentioned Napoleon Hill twice, and his book that was written over 100 years ago, Rich, is like, I mean, it's if you want to know how to get wealthy or you want to, uh, it's still a must read over 100 years later.
I can't the story of that, I was just amazed to even know. I mean, it's from Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm at, but and I mean that's where Napoleon Hill was, and it's just to even know all of that was just amazing. But the fact that he wrote that book over 100 years ago and they put it away for so long to then release it at the right time. I mean, even that was again, it's kind of what you're doing, what you've been able to do twice with Jackson Hewitt and now Liberty Tax. And now I guess what's next. So our show before doing this was what's next. And it's was having business owners on. So I guess business owners on. And thank you everybody who has joined us. Thank you, John, for all of your time. And I guess for these last 5 to 8 minutes that we're here, if you could just, what is next? What is the vision or the hope, the end road for loyalty brands, and how can anybody reach out to you if they want to maybe get started with a system that is proven and works?
Yeah, we it's easy to find me. I'm on Wikipedia, and yeah, you can either remember my name or Loyalty Brands and reach out to us and give you information. But we have what's next for me is become a franchisor. And so we have 12 brands. We're different. There are other groups that have multiple brands. But I was just talking to someone with, I won't name the mention of, I won't mention the brand name, but and they were whining that it was a mosquito franchise. And the franchisor doesn't care anything about the equity that owns all the brands. That they were not providing and benefits. For example, something simple like if they all had insurance or locations that um, they could get a discount if everyone used the same insurance company. And complaining that the vendor didn't or the private equity didn't go out and do that. So we have a company that that gives mentoring, that not only mentoring the franchise. Darren, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk here, and then we don't have to go over. I got cut off of this. I got cut off in the middle.
No.
All right, are you there? Sit down. DJ?
Yes, sorry about that.
Are we back? Okay,
I think we're back. Technical difficulties. Sorry. Yeah, I think the whole stream shut down. I don't really know what happened. Sorry.
So, do you know where you lost me?
I lost you at you were just getting into franchise or franchisors.
Yeah, I mean, think of a combination of franchisors that specialize in mentoring our franchisors, their franchisees, cross-marketing. For example, our tax company office does 7,000 returns, and our mobile dog, they have half of the 7,000 tax returns have, and many of them are going to need pet. Our largest dog grooming, mobile dog grooming, has 5,000, and all 5,000 need a tax return. And so we're involved with getting our and share them with all the loyalty brands.
I love the vision of that. I love what you're doing with it. I'm excited to even be have you on here and be a part of this. But I'm just so excited of what I see the future of loyalty brands and what I think how it can all intertwine. Again, having the backward, the being part of BNI, the networking group, and seeing how that world works and how the vision of this could very much align and do the same is super exciting, especially when it could change so many people's lives. Giving somebody the ability to have their own, with doing a franchise. I mean, right now working with a buddy of mine with Unishippers, he finally has the ability for him and his wife to do something they both love together. And build something together, and I think that's what the franchising and what you're doing with loyalty brands and all of the amazing kind of brands under there right now. They all tie together, which is amazing, and conveniently nice to intertwine. Where I guess last thing to take us out, piece of advice for anybody watching, or just one of your last words of wisdom from John Hewitt.
Again, find something you like to do, work hard, persevere. Most important attribute in success.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, John, for joining me. Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Again, if you did miss our live, it will be replayed, and it is on our YouTube channel, which is the What's Next podcast. You can like and subscribe down below if you are watching this on YouTube. Hit the little bell to get notified when we go live next. Again, follow John. Get his book, I Compete, please. You won't be disappointed, I promise. The stories are amazing. Just the amazing stories of some of your franchisees in the book, just the lives you changed, what you've been able to do. I just want to say thank you, John, for being who you are, for wanting to give like you are, and just for wanting to leave the world a better place than you found it. So thank you. Seriously, thank you, John.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Until next time, everybody, remember, feed the good wolf always.